I will call this meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment Monday, February 1st, 2021, 7 p.m. to order. We're doing this meeting tonight virtually. The public may observe and participate during this public portion of the meeting remotely by joining the virtual meeting through GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting provides two options for accessing the virtual meeting. All public meetings are available for live viewing on Wolfeboro Community TV, channel 25, or on the WCTV YouTube channel here. If you're unable to access the meeting, please email planning director at wolfeboro.h.us. So I'm Luke Freudenberg. I'm the chairman. I'm at home tonight. I'm alone. Sarah?
I'm Sarah Silk. I'm at home and I'm alone in the room.
Dave Senecal?
Yeah, Dave Senecal. I'm at home in a room by myself.
And Audrey Klein?
Audrey Klein, I'm at home in a room by myself.
Perfect. Okay, tonight we have one public hearing. And since Tim is not on yet, I will go ahead and read the public hearing. This is Gino Rinaldi, 67 Varney Road, tax map 203, lot 5, case number 01-V-21. This is a public hearing for variance under 175-80A 1 and 2 of the Wolfeboro Planning and Zoning Ordinance to allow for the replacement of a dwelling closer to the front and side setback lines. The property is located at 67 Varney Road. Copies were set on the third department.
Point of order, Luke.
Sure, go ahead.
Are you, is Dave as an alternate sitting? Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Are you sitting Dave as the alternate, and are there going to be 4 of us?
Four of us. Travis, do you want to try to get a hold of Tim Cronin real quickly and see if he can be coming on or not?
I will do my best to see if I can get in touch with him, yeah.
Okay.
Luke?
Yes.
My question was
Sorry,
similar
my
to
back is
Audrey's. I was just going to ask if we had to officially ask the applicant if he was willing to have it reviewed by less than a full board, if such is the case.
Okay. Travis, what's the protocol? Suzanne Ryan's on.
Sending an email and trying to get him in the background. Yes, you do have the opportunity, Gino, if you would rather wait to have this heard by the full board, this is your option. Otherwise,
I think I'm fine. I mean, I would have no way of knowing, but let's go with what we have.
Yeah, I had Suzanne just logging on, so now you have 5.
I'm okay with 5, Travis.
Okay.
I don't know who was talking.
Suzanne, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't unmuted. Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. We literally just started. I just read the case, and I was just going through. We're just trying to figure out if we have enough people. So I'm just going to ask everybody now. Susan, are you alone? Are you alone? And where are you? Just for public information.
Yes, I'm alone at my house.
Okay, perfect. Did everyone get a chance to visit the site? Sarah?
Yes, I've been by it and I was somewhat familiar with it. I went by Friday after I got my packet.
Dave Senico?
Yes, I'm familiar with it. I have been by the property.
Audrey Klein?
I did not go by since the case was recorded, but I'm familiar with it and I did look at it electronically.
And Suzanne?
I haven't been by, but familiar with it.
Okay. And I went by today and walked it, so I've been there. So we will open this public hearing, and Mr. Rinaldi, you're presenting, right? So if you want to just take us through the information that you laid out in the packet, point for point, that'll be the best way to do it.
Okay, Luke. So basically what we have, my younger brother, Tony, and I bought this trailer together. We're interested in taking the trailer home down. And what I tried to create was a very modest house to replace it. In my opinion, whether it be correct or not, I'm not asking for a lot here or a huge project. What I am trying to do is take the existing footprint of the trailer, not enlarge it at all. In fact, shrink it by maybe 50 square feet, but square it off. And then I think what is kicking me to the zoning board is that I want to add a second story. I felt that 700 square feet was too tight, even for a 2-bedroom house for comfortable living. We intend on keeping this house, not selling it or flipping it. It's just something we'd like to use up there in the summers. There's also a large garage with a shed and some other structures which we'd like to shrink in as well. I would like to have a 1-car garage, which would be 12 foot by 20 feet deep. Again, much smaller than what is currently there. And I want to build an attractive New England style house, 2 stories, keep the 2-bedroom septic. I'm sorry, replace the 2-bedroom septic, but not increase it at all. And so I'm trying to build a conservative, narrow New Englander style home here on this lot. I think it would fit in nice with the neighborhood. The 2 neighbors I have met love the idea. That's about it.
Okay, well, thank you for the background information. That was great. Nice to hear. If you wouldn't mind, just for our sake and the way we do this, do you have the document you filled out, the variance request document? Would you mind
absolutely
going through the 5 points?
Yeah, I've never seen one of your zoning boards, Luke, and in my whole life I've only sat in on a couple, so the process is a little unfamiliar to me.
Understandable.
And these questions, I did fill out. Some of them seem slightly, I don't want to say redundant, but I'm not sure that I differentiated enough on each of them. Let's see. I know I have those. Give me one more second.
I don't mind reading what you wrote, and if you want to expand upon it, that's fine too. If that helps
You know, it would help. I was under the assumption that you guys had this and it wasn't something I would read, but I would love that if someone could do that. And maybe I
Sure,
can
I
try
don't
to
mind doing.
expand.
I don't. Yeah, it's that's just how when we go through the process, the 5 points for the public too that are watching, potentially watching, just to clarify, why we're looking at this, why we're considering it. So the 5 points are key to us. So I'll read them, what you wrote, and if you want to expand upon each one, that would be great. Or if the board members have questions as I'm reading them, certainly they can do that. So you wrote that no problem. You wrote that the variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the current house is old, ugly, it's a trailer home. The new house sits the same footprint and will be small, tasteful, single family. Public will not be involved, but will be, hopefully it'll be improved. You mentioned the spirit of the ordinance. The proposed house is tiny and will be a nice addition to the neighborhood. The new house is keeping in line with the neighborhood and the existing trailer home in terms of size and use. It will be visually much nicer. You wrote that substantial justice is done because the proposed house than most developers would propose, and the trailer home needs replacement. The abutters and citizens should generally in a similar way would benefit in a similar way to the developer. You wrote the value of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. The proposed house will improve values in the neighborhood. The trailer home is the ugliest house in the neighborhood. The new house will be attractive and much similar to the other houses in the neighborhood. And then on point 5, literal enforcement of the provisions of this ordinance the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area as follows. It's a very difficult lot to place a sewer system and design, very small, and there's only 2 bedrooms. The existing house trailer isn't reasonable for today's standards in terms of space or function. A modest increase in size is being requested. For use the proposed or B on number
Luke,
proposed
I keep losing your vocal.
and that was
Yeah.
Luke, we keep losing
very
your
low
vocal.
impact on the completion of what you wrote. So you can certainly expand upon that if you'd like to. Okay. Did you get any of it?
I got a lot of it, and I don't have a lot to expand other than I think other developers or even families would probably be inclined to build a larger home, and I'm simply trying to build the smallest house I can on what is already a small lot in a neighborhood with basically small homes surrounding it. So I try to design something that we could use that fits our need, but also looks nice on the street and keeps things at a minimum. I don't know, other than a 1-story ranch at 750 square feet, I don't know what else I could propose that would be have less of an impact negatively, or more of an impact in a positive direction, which is what I'm trying to achieve.
I'm going to open the public hearing. Board members, members of the public, anyone have questions for the presenter? Sarah?
I have a question for Tavis. Are you there, Tavis?
I'm here.
Okay, I just had a quick question. Looking at the fact that this piece of property is about, a quarter of a mile from the sewer treatment plant, I was astonished to see that it had a septic system of its own.
I guess I don't understand the question.
Okay, I guess my question is, where is it that the town sewer is down on that road?
I can't speak to exactly where the town sewer is on that road.
Okay, because some of the constrictions on his lot might have been greatly relieved if he did not have to use that septic system. If he could use the town sewer, it would give him a lot more options.
That certainly would.
To that point, if there is sewer there, and I don't know if there is or not, he's actually required to hook up. Does anybody know if there's sewer there?
Correct. I don't believe there is sewer there, but I was first answering the question of how close is sewer. And without knowing specifically where it is, I will default to being it's too far away to obligate connection, and therefore the septic is the required option.
Luke?
Yes, Suzanne.
Luke? Yes, if we go forward
Yes,
to
Suzanne.
approve this, then I would think that, yes, if we go forward with this, I would think, and approve it, I would think that that could be a condition that if the town requires a hookup, then the applicant must hook up.
I believe it's a state requirement, Suzanne, if you're within so many feet.
That is.
Well, I thought that was a town as well.
I think
No objection on
And
my
David,
end.
it's required.
David
Was that-
Senecal would know the answer.
With that being a discussion point, I suggest the board make sure you evaluate the requested variance based on, make sure your findings aren't specific to septic or non-septic. To that, I mean, if this house were able to connect to sewer, would you still consider the variance? Question mark. That's just a thought for discussion.
Yeah, Luke,
Yes, Dave.
yeah, I believe the town sewer comes down Filter Bed Road and then turns down Viney Road. It does not go up Viney Road. So it's just down to that corner. The condos that were put in, they hooked into town sewer up on Filter Bed Road. So that's as far as it goes. It does not go up Viney Road past Filter Bed.
Okay. Are there any other
I
questions?
guess I
for the
question, what is the
applicant?
distance? What is the distance that is required to hook up to the sewer? If it goes up behind the condos, what is the distance to the sewer, and is he required to hook up? And in my opinion, it would make a large difference, because if he didn't need the septic field, the structure could be placed in another manner.
I think the requirement is 300 feet, but I don't know what that distance is.
Well, I'd ask the question of the board. Luke, would we want to continue this because of that, or would we want to make some sort of a conditional approval because of that?
I'll leave it up to the board, but Tav is. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yes, I would think that it would be kind of testy to approve it and not knowing and put any kind of conditions on, because he might want to change his plan if he found out that his lot wasn't constricted because of this septic system. I think it might be better to just continue it and get the definite answer to that question.
I think that I agree with Sarah, and I also have a couple of other questions that we don't have the answers to. So if this is the direction the board feels is right, I would like to have some discussion about the other items that he might be able to find answers to if we do continue. So I guess I would like to, have a discussion about the application, before we continue it, if that's what's going to happen.
Okay,
I
why don't we
agree
go ahead,
about
Audrey, why don't you have your question?
As for general discussion, I can offer that if you measure along Barney Road, the proposed house is in excess of 800 feet. The condo association actually makes connection to Filter Bed Road, say the condo parcel. So I think that 800 feet is the question, and that's what keeps it outside the 300-foot connection envelope. So I do not believe the town sewer is required. And again, I would suggest to the board, perhaps after Audrey's questions, that you consider the variance, whether you would grant the variance if water or if sewer connection were possible.
I
Or
don't
would it-
mind going through the process. I would not approve the variance if the sewer connection were required.
That I was going to agree with. I would agree with you, Audrey. The converse of that is, if he has to put in a septic design, then he's constricted. If he doesn't, he's not constricted. So, but can we hear your other questions?
Yep.
If we're ready to move towards those, yes.
Yeah, let's get all the
Okay,
questions out and then we'll go back to this.
Could I ask just one question? If there was sewer available, of course, I'd prefer that. But what would it be that would make this more acceptable? Just pushing the house, I'm assuming, back from the street? In other words, what would you prefer? I guess, Audrey, I'm asking, just to educate me.
Well, the
Well,
concept.
that certainly would be the first. That would be the first thing that I would see, is that front setback could be made larger. But I still
agree.
have some additional questions.
Okay.
So I'm assuming,
Audrey, you
because
wanna
of
go
the
ahead and ask your-
septic design that we were given. I'm sorry, what?
I'll go ahead and continue with your
What
question.
did you say, Luke?
I was just saying,
I'm
continue with your
assuming because of
question.
your septic design. There has not been a survey on this parcel or on any of the adjacent lines that you're aware of?
The gentleman that did the septic design for me also put this survey together that you have in your file. That's all I have at this point. David Cliff.
So he does not appear to have stamped that as a surveyor. So I'm going to say that he either didn't do a survey or he's not a surveyor. So I'm concerned about the accuracy of the lot. The tax map shows that as 0.19 acres. And that lot is shown on the septic design as 0.22 acres. If we were to give a variance based on the setbacks, and I know that there's a requirement to verify the foundation certification, but what if that's way different at that point? I'm concerned about that because of that inaccuracy there, or difference of numbers. Is the existing septic system behind the trailer, or do you know?
It is almost exactly where the new one is.
Can you tell me whether the porch is a four-season porch with its own heat ducting and insulation, or is it something else?
Does it?
The porch in the front. I've been in the trailer once. I was planning on tearing it down, so I didn't look close, but it's livable year round. I mean, that's where the kitchen table and other things were the day I was in there. So I'm assuming it's heated.
Yeah, Hoppy always.
My
had
question,
that heated.
my question was it heated because heat was coming from the trailer, or did it have its own installed heating venting there. And if you don't know, you don't know.
I
was just
really
curious
don't.
About that.
I really don't.
Another requirement in Wolfeboro zoning under 175-6A is for a certified wetland scientist to identify wetlands and determine what kind of wetlands they are and where the delineation of the line is. He does not stamp his septic plan as a certified wetland scientist. Do you know whether he is and whether he could do that?
I would assume not, and I certainly could hire that person. This was a gentleman introduced to me by, I don't know a lot of people in Wolfeboro, by a guy I know there for the septic design. Then when I heard that I had to go to the zoning board, he said, I can prepare what you need, and I took him at his word.
Okay, so the reason I think that might be important is because depending on what the nature of the wetland is, whether it's a perennial stream, a very poorly drained soil, a bog or a vernal pool, the setback would be 75 feet, not 25 feet. If it is 75 feet, then the construction would need to comply with another section, 175-7E, which does not allow for the expansion of the building envelope without a variance. So that would be a different type of approach to this application. I think
Okay.
I would need to know what kind of wetlands it is, whether it's identified correctly, and whether we need to go down that other path or not.
I believe
Okay.
the determination was made on the fact that the existing structure was going to be raised and the new structure was going up within, if not upon, the same existing foundation. And the same was occurring with the beach field and the septic system.
Right, but 175-7E does not allow for a three-dimensional expansion without regularly, unless it's a variance of that section. And that's specifically for the wetlands issues and not for like property line setbacks. So it's a different set of criteria that you'd be talking about when you address the 5 criteria for a variance. You'd be talking about the impact with regard to the wetland, not the property setbacks.
I think that Luke?
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Yeah, I think they, I believe it was 3 questions that Audrey raised, plus the question that we initially had about the septic hookup justifies an extension or a continuation and time for the applicant to verify or answer the issues that Audrey has raised. And I don't think it would be a hardship upon the applicant. It sounds like he wants to do this thing right anyway. So how does the board feel about that?
To Sarah.
I think we have more questions, and I agree that it's much easier on the applicant if we continue to a date certain and allow him to get the information that's required, because then he doesn't have to re-notify and go through all that expense. So I'd be in favor of a continuation.
I would ask if, Travis, were you able to take notes on those items that Audrey laid out, plus the septic? Or could Audrey email those to you?
I think they should be said again one more time into the record, because as she was going through them, I was trying to look for them and not writing them down. So if she can enumerate them, I already have the sewer septic issue, but then I can add the others.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to continue this hearing to allow the applicant to address the 3 issues plus the septic to our next meeting in February. I don't have a calendar in front of me. First Monday of the month.
I'll second
Oh,
that.
it would be
because I
March.
think
It would be
Audrey has
March,
some
I'm sorry.
discussion.
Well, I make a motion, and if I
I would
get a
sec-
second, you discuss it.
I said I will
And it would
second
be,
it for discussion. I believe Audrey has a question.
Okay, so Suzanne, you made a motion and Sarah, you seconded it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that-
yeah,
now
and
we'll-
it should have been March. I said February. It's February today, so
March
March.
1st.
March.
Spring's coming.
Now,
I'll
Audrey,
re-second the motion with the correction for the month.
Thank you.
Audrey, if you wouldn't mind, Audrey, just enumerating the numbers for Tavis and for the applicant so that we're both all on the same page.
Yes, I will. And I also have some other comments before we, during the discussion of the motion. So let me go back to, so section 175(6)A requires a certified wetland scientist for wetlands delineation. If the wetlands meets the criteria of 175(B)(3)A, which is a certain type of wetland, then if it meets that criteria, then section 175(7)E needs to be met, or there needs to be a variance for it. I think that's it for that one. Did you get that, Tavis?
I did, thank you.
So I have some comments, some general comments about the application that I'd like to go through first before we vote on continuing. Are we good to go?
You're good to go, as long as is it at least fall under the motion?
No, it's not about continuing. It's about, it would be, I guess it would be argument with regard to the variance criteria. I think it would be to the benefit. I kind of would like to bring this forward before the applicant makes the effort to meet those other conditions. Maybe it would be more correct to wait until we have discussion on the variance criteria. It's related to the variance criteria.
Okay.
I'd like to hear.
But Luke, what I'm hearing is it might be advantageous
Yeah.
to see if the motion to continue to March 1st with the additional criteria being met is ratified, if you will, then there can be some additional discussion. And then it could be up to the applicant based on that discussion and those criteria to see if he may or may not request more time from the board to address the issues raised.
Sarah,
Okay, part of those items to be considered on the continuance would also be, as I believe, the question about the town sewer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay, and also, correct me if I'm wrong, Audrey, but is one of those also relative to the size of the lot, whether it's 0.19 or 0.22 with having a survey?
That is one of those, but that's not what I was discussing with regard to the variance criteria. Yes, one of the points that the continuance motion was made on included that clarification of the site.
Okay, that's 4 points. Was there anything else? Did I miss something?
Well, we haven't talked about the variance criteria, so that would happen presumably either we would make a motion to discuss that now, or we would wait until he's supplied this information on those 4 points when he
Luke, Suzanne here.
Go
Why
ahead.
don't I withdraw
Comes back and
the
then
motion
discuss the
for
variance
conti-
criteria,
for-
which I
withdraw
don't think is beneficial to him.
Let me withdraw that motion for continuance, because I don't think, if there's a question whether this meets the 5 criteria, I don't think, and the answer is no on any one of them, then I think we wouldn't be continuing. So I would like to withdraw that motion I made and let Audrey bring up her point and then go from there.
Okay. Go ahead, Audrey.
Okay. I've made notes, so I'm kind of reading along here. As we know, this lot is in the R zone, which is something we all probably pick up on pretty readily. We understand what the master plan and the zoning, what the R zone is laid out to be for. But we have to understand this is also in the manufactured housing overlay district. And this, the manufactured overlay district was required by a state RSA 67432, which requires that there's some area in towns that allow for manufactured housing. And the purpose for that is to allow for affordable housing in every town in some area. And this was kind of affordable housing was hooked to manufactured housing in the past, and that's why they kind of go hand in hand. As you probably have heard, there's a big movement with regard to tiny homes recently, and how they could address affordable housing and workforce housing and the ability to allow those to be built in areas. And in a sense, they're kind of the new manufactured housing push. And there's a number of House and Senate bills that came up last year and this coming year that would promote that type of construction. Having said that, this manufacturing housing district is set aside for the purpose of affordable housing. And when you look in this district, which is fairly large in Wolfeboro, you look at all the parcels and which parcels are actually best used for affordable housing in the district. And, you know, we don't expect a manufactured home or a tiny home to be on a large parcel because that would just make it more expensive. So the ideal place for these affordable housing units are on the smallest parcels closest to town, where workforce people can walk into town or small business owners can walk to their business. And when, if we were to remove this parcel from the ability to have a small home on it, a manufactured home or a tiny home, we're reducing it from the small pool of parcels that are ideal for that type of housing within this district, but that district is exactly put there for that reason. So, you know, a larger house has other properties in these districts that it can easily go on without variances. And for those reasons, I would say that this does not meet criteria 1 and 2 of the variance criteria. And I also don't think it meets 3 and 5. So I'd like to have that discussion.
Luke, with that in mind, Audrey's suggesting we go through the 5 criteria and either approve or disapprove, regardless of the other 4 points that were raised. And I think the board needs to take a minute to think about that. I would ask a question of Audrey and David. The state law, when it came through for allowing for manufactured housing, it said you can have them anywhere in town or in a district. Does not Wolfeboro have manufactured housing in other areas of town?
Yes.
I can answer that if you'd like. The manufactured overlay district covers several other zoning districts. It's not just in one area. So yes, there's a fairly sizable portion of properties. And what 67432 says initially is municipalities shall afford reasonable opportunities for the siting of manufactured housing, and a municipality shall not exclude manufactured housing completely from the municipality by regulation, zoning ordinance, or by any other police power. And it suggests that the manufacturing housing overlay include a variety of different underlying zoning districts. So yes, the district is quite large, but if you look at the number of parcels in those districts and you look at the size of them, you can pretty much recognize that somebody's not going to buy an expensive 3-acre parcel and put a tiny home on it. That's not affordable. That's not affordable housing. It's the smaller lots, the more difficult lots, the lots that need variances for larger houses that are ideal for affordable housing, like a manufactured housing or a tiny home or just a small home.
But Wolfeboro didn't shirk its duties by allowing for areas of town to have mobile homes or trailer homes, whatever you call them, manufactured homes. Wolfeboro is in compliance. What you're saying is in this particular street or this particular area zone that you feel, I'm hearing that you feel we'd be diminishing that use by allowing a trailer to be ripped down and a larger house put in.
Yes, I think that for a small lot, it can be used according to our zoning, according to the desire of our zoning and the desire of our master plan, without enlarging the variance that it would need to make that. I mean, it's used, obviously it was used for all these years the way it was, legally non-conforming, and it might need some variance or other even for a small home. But I think the purpose of these lots is to try to make them available for affordable housing. 700 square feet is not unusual. The definition of tiny home is less than 500 square feet. They're making manufactured housing units now that look really pretty cool. They don't necessarily look like the regular trailers that we're used to. And a small home of 700 feet, 1 floor is an affordable housing unit. A 1,500 square feet house is, if you look at what we're selling houses for in Wolfeboro for $244 per square foot, that's not affordable.
Interesting. But I get it.
I can understand, and I appreciate all what you said, Audrey. I just feel like if the applicant had came and asked to build a, on the lot size, a building that was going to be bigger in sense of how much it was going to take up on the lot, I would agree with you. But the applicant's coming and saying we're going to reduce the footprint of the lot. Yeah, we're going to go up, but ultimately, it's tearing down a trailer that is dilapidated and replacing it with a home. And I know this doesn't argue the 5 points, but it does in a sense because it alters the value of the homes around it. It's going to improve the value of homes around it. And I don't think what the applicant's doing is being unreasonable. And if he can jump through the criteria that we make him do with, looking at the sewer and the septic and having a wetland scientist sign off on it and stuff like that, I don't think this is, I understand where you're going and I understand the concept and I appreciate what you're doing and what you're saying. I just think in this instance, he's not looking to do something that is crazy or wild. But I could be wrong. Dave?
Yeah, the applicant certainly still has a right to the square footage that he has now. In other words, he could take it down. He could put up a new building. Doesn't have to be manufactured housing. The front section was used by Hoppy when he lived there year round. It had its own heating system. So the whole building from my perspective, is year round. So, that being said, the applicant has a right to take that square footage, have a survey done, so that it gets surveyed back into place, the same exact size. It could go just and get a building permit, right? I mean, I think we would agree with that. So he wouldn't even have to be here. That's another
correct.
option that he would have. As far as the sewer and the water, he's already hooked into town water. So we just need to know whether he has to deal with town sewer if he wants to expand up. So if you want to go through the criteria, that's fine. But he still has some other rights that he has right now to develop that particular lot. You know, and it would require a survey to get the building permit and so forth to replace what he has as far as the square footage and the dimensions and so forth of the house that's there now. But it doesn't have to be a manufactured home, even though it's in that zone.
Correct.
Correct? Okay.
That's right. Yeah, I didn't mean to say that it needed to be manufactured homes. Certainly, the footprint is around 700 square foot. A stick-built home or, you know, any of the other options is absolutely his right to replace, and even square it off is very reasonable. It's the fact that the second floor is doubling the square footage and taking it out of the, you know, affordable housing range that I think is my theoretical issue here, as you pointed out, Luke.
It all makes
Well,
sense.
Audrey,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Sarah.
Just to mention something else that's going on in the lot, by reducing the size of the proposed garage over what is there, I thought was a positive. That's the good news.
I totally agree with that, and it pulls it away from the wetlands, which is another question we'll find. I think that's definitely probably the best thing about this application. Although I don't understand why it's not attached to the house, but.
Good question.
Suzanne?
yeah, it seems as though we're veering into the discussion of the 5 criteria. I don't know as though it would be beneficial to actually go through them after we've heard Audrey's information. And if we were to deny it, we have to have a reason why. If we approve it, we could do with the conditions that we've already, those points that we've already talked about. So I think we shouldn't get, I think we should actually then, rather than continue this at this time, maybe just go through the 5 criteria and it's either going to pass or it isn't going to pass. Audrey, I'd like your input on that. How do you feel about that?
Well, I would speak to the 5 criteria. I think that's a good way to do it. I think we'll have to be pretty careful with the criteria, but I think it makes more sense for the applicant, for us to go through the approval first, and then he seems very willing to do the other things. Perhaps we might have to adjust an approval based on the information that comes back, but that, you know, the overall approval, I think would be better to have done prior to all those other things rather than after.
Okay. If somehow I can pick up a sense of what's going to keep the board happy and people in the town of Wolfeboro. I've worked in a lot of towns. I live in Newburyport. Audrey, you mentioned the garage. If I ever tried to attach a garage in the home in Newburyport, they'd throw me out. It's like every town is different. It's like, so, and I don't know Wolfeboro. So I love Wolfeboro. And I have a couple little properties in town and we do like coming up. This home, I'm very flexible. I was going to pull a permit build, just as Dave said, a little 1-story, 700 square foot house. And then my brother and I started talking over a beer and said, why don't we build a vertical New England? It'll look nice, blah. And so I'm flexible, so I'd like to keep continuing to be educated. I don't know the process. I don't want to tie everyone up all night, but the more I can hear, the better. And then I guess if it doesn't get approved and I have to build a single story 700 square foot house, yeah, I'm okay with that. I think it's less desirable for the reasons I've stated, but I'm not hung up. So whatever that's worth, you guys got to decide how you want to proceed.
I just want to bring up one thing too, if just based on what the applicant said, and hypothetically, if the applicant can hook up to town sewer, okay, just playing this out, okay, if hypothetically he could, then he could move the house back a little bit.
Yeah.
So do we want to continue it and get the additional information and allow him to come back to us in March if he's okay with that? And then we can go forward with this, yes or no, or I'll leave it up to the board. But I feel like there are some questions out there that could help his case if he got those answered.
Luke, if I can interject here. Gino, just for clarity, it's not up to this board to help you design your project.
Oh, I understand, Travis.
I know, I just want to be clear, attaching the garage or not attaching the garage, that's a personal thing. This board is really looking at, providing relief to the zoning within their authority based on site-specific criteria as outlined either by the site, the application, or other information presented to the board. Going to Luke's last point, if sewer hookup is allowed or possible, then the applicant could still put the house back, a new house, exactly where the existing one is, that he could then connect to as opposed to putting in a new septic system. The other option, I mean, if we're throwing out all the options here, the proposed second story could still be attached with or without sewer perhaps. It's just that the additional square footage or anything across the side or front setback lines would have to be set back. So you could step the house back and still put the addition on. Probably would be an awkward form of construction, but that's also another option. And going back to the general discussion, I think it might be helpful if the board were to give some generalities about the criteria, 5 criteria, but I would suggest the board not lean or express a leaning towards approval or denial based on the criteria, insofar as you've already outlined a number of site elements that you don't have concrete answers to. And once those answers are in place, the applicant may be able to amend the application based on that new information, which may or may not or completely address the criteria. Does that make sense to the board?
Sarah?
Luke, I can only understand about half of what Tavis says.
Me too.
Okay,
Yeah, you're not alone.
okay.
Me too.
The
I understood enough that I can add a little bit.
is we have an application in front of us that's asking for a
Suzanne, are you
two-story.
talking?
Yeah. Is it okay? Something happened.
I'm only
Yeah.
hearing about half of anybody right now.
Dave has
Dave?
his hand up.
Dave?
We have an application before us for a two-story house, and we're talking about another type of building. So we have to act on this application as presented and not hypothetically think that we could approve it if there was a trailer there. Uh-oh.
Dave?
Yeah, I think my opinion is that we probably just need to continue this to a date certain. Let the applicant digest what all of us have said in different directions. Because right now, it's really confusing to me. But I think that you had the right idea earlier when Suzanne made the motion, or Audrey, to continue it to a date certain. And I think that's what we can do. In the meantime, we can figure out the sewer thing. We can figure out some other items so that we don't have to keep asking those questions. What if, what if, what if? And I think if the applicant comes back to us and says, okay, I've got so-and-so is going to do a survey, he's going to place everything, and now I'm going to do something different. I mean, we don't know. I mean, I don't think the applicant right now in his head knows what exact direction he wants to go in. So I think the sensible thing, as somebody said earlier, is so we don't have to re-advertise and do all this stuff, is we just simply continue it, this particular application number, to a date certain and take it up then. Because if we start getting into the 5 points, we're going to get even more confused with each other. Because we all have different directions.
And we get into the 5 points, it may be all moot because he may decide to amend it because of the answer to all of our questions.
If he can hook in the town sewer, he can move a building back and put it in there and just get a building permit. He meets the setbacks.
Well,
That's simple.
that
It's a
depends on the
wetland.
wetlands. That depends on the wetlands criteria. I mean, that's going to play a part as
I'm
well.
not going to disagree with that, but I'm just saying, there is that possibility if he comes with all that other information, he can then make a decision probably before the next meeting. And maybe he ends up withdrawing the application. I don't know.
And now he knows he can hook his garage to his house because he's not in Newburyport.
Exactly. But
I agree with Dave. This will open a lot of, time will open a lot of possibilities, and who knows what, it
in
might.
the next month, we
come
can
up.
certainly get a lot of that information. And it can be easily done, as you know, Audrey, right at the town hall. You know, they have a blueprint of the sewer system. He can take a scale, measure it off. He can get into the sewer system through the condos. I don't know. I haven't seen all the plans for the whole neighborhood, so I don't know. But I think that to help the applicant, we need to instead of just denying it, I think we ought to give him a chance to go back and get together with some other people and figure it out. That's
Luke?
my,
I'd appreciate that.
To continue this to a time certain.
I'm gonna restate the motion to recontinue this application to March 1st, I believe is the date, 2021. Thereby giving the applicant the opportunity to gather up the information and answer the questions we have raised.
I'll second that.
Second,
okay,
Okay, discussion, Dave?
yeah, you want to, Suzanne, amend your motion to be case 01-V-2120? Would you add that to your motion?
Consider it added.
Okay,
Thank you. I didn't have it in front of me.
Okay, any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Dave Senecal,
Yes,
Sarah Silk,
Yes,
Audrey Klein,
yes.
and Suzanne Ryan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your time.
Now, Luke, I have one administrative note here, or Tavis, actually. On the denial letter, it lists this location as 75 Arnie Road instead of 67. So just to notate that.
I noticed that too, yeah.
I'll get that corrected.
Thank you, Mr. Rinaldi. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Moving on, we have consideration of the minutes. Those were minutes from December 7th, 2020 meeting. Let's get those out. Do you have any corrections on page 1? How about page 2? Page 3? Sarah?
I'm four, page four,
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead, page 4.
Second paragraph from the bottom, I thought I had asked also if there was any precedent in the state of anybody else of using a 5-year extension. And I didn't see that as a question that got answered for us. But I didn't see it in the minutes, and I didn't know if maybe that's why it didn't end up getting asked later on.
Travis?
I do not recall hearing a question as to statewide precedents as to a 5-year extension. So I quite honestly was looking for the minutes to be based on my recollection of the meeting, and it seemed to follow along. I believe the answer that was provided, and we can get to that in a minute. We'll address that.
Okay. I don't think so.
Anyone else on page 4? Page 5? Page 6? Page 7 or 8?
I'll make a motion that we accept as written.
Okay, I'll second it. Is there any further discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Dave Senico?
I abstain. I was not at that meeting.
Sarah?
Yes.
Audrey?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Okay, Thomas, do you want to take over the next portion of the minutes? Of the discussion with the town council question and answer?
I'm happy to, but I think you need to vote on the minutes.
Oh, we just did.
No, did you? I didn't hear you vote.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yes, contrary to the discussion you just had, page 4 in the minutes, these are the questions as I frantically scribbled down notes at the meeting and forwarded them to town council. The answers are there. The answer is that yes, a ZBA can extend the 2-year period for a special exception upon the finding of good cause. And the second question relates to variance criteria, and it is A or B, not A and B. So, which is good because that's exactly how the application is set up. So unless there are questions or clarifications based on this, this is the town attorney's response to the board's question.
Any questions for Doris?
I'm still curious as to whether any other town has approved with a 5-year limit instead of a 2, or anything above 2. I don't know if there's any type of planner group that you can consult to ask that question.
Yeah, there are all sorts of groups I can ask the question to, but as I understood the question to be, does the board have the ability to grant beyond 2 years on the initial hearing? And the answer to that is yes.
I'm not questioning that. I'm not questioning that. I'm just asking if anyone has.
The question raised at the hearing was, can you grant a special exception for more than 2 years at the initial hearing? Because all of the dialogue was centered around, is it 2 years and then they come back and request an extension for good cause, or can the board grant, as was the case with the boat museum in that case, where they presented an initial request for more than 2 years. I will say that I have been part of at least 3 of them in 5 years that have been granted more than 2 years, and each were based on very specific findings for the approval. However, we have to keep in mind that even with 2 years, if a project has a special exception granted by the zoning board, and then they obtain site plan approval within the 2 years, the project does not need an extension of the special exception. So granting of the site plan approval functionally vests the special exception approval. So my suggestion to the board for future applications for special exception would be to look for an applicant to demonstrate good cause to the effect that their application may take more than 2 years to achieve a subsequent permit. And that, I will agree, is often a difficult threshold. But you have to find good cause in something. I did not go further with the attorney to find out what common or accepted quote unquote good cause is or has been determined to find. That is up to each individual board to determine good cause.
Can you tell me,
Travis,
Travis, did they have a time?
wouldn't good cause be they are vested in what their project is? If we didn't give a 5 and we gave a 2, and they had put substantial improvements into the project, they would be vested. And so that would be one reason for good cause to extend. Or in the initial application, if they said, I can only do this in phases, I can do this in 2 years, and this in 4 years, and this in 6 years, and stated the reasons why it had to be phased, that might be good cause. I will not go into why I think that the boat museum would not have good cause. I don't think it's appropriate.
Absolutely, I don't think it's that project should be discussed at all in this meeting. And I would generally agree with your comments that those may be something the board would accept as justifications in the future. I can't speak for the board.
Tavis, is there a vesting period for the approval of the site plan?
Site plans do have to achieve substantial compliance within, I believe, also 2 years. But again, that's something the planning board would have some authority to grant a time period on. But the way it procedurally works is that if someone were granted a special exception for a use, and then they went to the planning board and had a site plan approved, the special exception would be locked in. Now, I haven't gone down the proverbial rabbit hole to find out if somebody achieves is approved for a special exception, then obtains site plan approval, but then fails to vest the site plan approval. I haven't gone into what then happens to the special exception. My feeling on that is that the project would just essentially negate itself, and it would need to begin with a new special exception.
I think you're right, because at some point, inactivity as the site plan regulations and the zoning changes, you can't keep your thumb in the, in the dike hole forever on that.
Correct.
Somehow they interplay, and I don't know either, Tavis. It probably gets quite complicated.
I have had previous to Wolfeboro experience with a project where I was completely floored to have the judge actually determine it vested. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Any other business?
Would you like a motion to
Move
adjourn?
to adjourn. A second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Dave Stenico,
Yes.
Sarah Silk,
Yes.
Audrey Klein,
Yes.
Suzanne Ryan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Well, good night, everyone.
See ya.
You
Thank you.
first.